All right. So my name is Samari Bell. I am interviewing Heike Schweigert. So Heike, I have a few questions for you. We're going to be talking about race today, kind of touching on a subject that's kind of sensitive. So we're going to get your ideas on what it's like to be you.
Okay.
First question I have for you is how does it feel when you are the only one or one of a few of your race in a group, such as in a classroom setting?
I don't feel uncomfortable to be precise, but I would rather go and blend in, with my people instead to kind
Okay,
of,
so you're saying you're not uncomfortable, but to an extent you are?
yes, until I loosen up and get to know other people.
And what helps you to loosen up when it is just you or maybe one other person that is your race?
Typically, if somebody does an icebreaker, but I'm not the one first to jump ship.
So you're not going to be the one that initiates conversation. Do you find having two people of your race? What is your race, by the way? Let's state that first, since we're
I'm
asking.
Asian, Hispanic.
Asian Hispanic. Okay, and where are you from?
I was born in Nicaragua.
Okay, and then when
That's
did you move
raised.
here?
I moved here in 1994 when I was 8.
Wow, 8 years old. That's crazy. I was just being born. Such an age difference with us too. Um, so, okay, did you find that difficult as a child? Did you speak English when you came here?
I didn't. I was the first of my siblings to learn it. It
Okay.
was easier for me because I was young. I was younger, but this is part of growing, I guess, in that time.
Okay. Makes sense. Um, what legal or ethical dilemma has happened within the last 2 years with the population you identify the most with that has made you ashamed or made you advocate or feel compassion for another population of people or an individual who is different from you?
I would say something that I do advocate for with the minivan or whatever they called it, with immigrants coming from El Salvador or South and Central America for refuge.
Okay.
I mean, I know I had family members who did cross the border at one point in their lifetimes, and not all of us Hispanics are criminals or drug addicts. So I can feel compassion for that. Um, and I understand why they're trying to get here.
Okay. So it does make you more sympathetic. And is there a particular way you like to advocate that you are educate people that are around you? Because I'm trying to learn how to advocate for my racial group as well.
Well, like I said, I understand where they're coming from, trying to find that quote unquote American dream, and some Americans or in politics, they see immigrants as criminals or drug dealers and all that. And, that's not the case. They're very hardworking individuals, just like you and I. So, that's definitely something that, the ignorance now is being brought upon. So it's unfortunately it divides those type of cultures and diversities.
That's true. Do you find that all immigrant groups are kind of treated the same, or do you feel one group is more put off or looked down upon by in politics or the media or just
No,
other
no, I don't
countries?
think it's the same. I mean, just like right now with the Afghans or Afghans, they are living in military housing on military bases, but here we are with all these undocumented children in cages in, ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement Agency. But again, you have the Afghans uh, called as refugees, but what about my people? What are they, just immigrants? And it's not right how they label, one set of immigrants and another set of immigrants, and just because they're from two different continents.
That does make sense. And it kind of feels like by labeling them two separate things, they're kind of
Right,
getting treated two separate ways, one not so great, and one's kind of getting a little assistance.
right.
Um, what kind of stereotypes do you think people have about you because of your race?
Well, here in Texas, they automatically assume because I look Hispanic or I have the Hispanic face that I'm either Puerto Rican or Mexican. So it's kind of degrading because I'm like, no, look at a map and see, where Nicaragua is. Most people don't even know where it is. So it's like, it's frustrating.
I believe that. Do you think there is maybe a community out here of Nicaraguans so you can feel like you have a group, or just connecting with anybody of the Hispanic group? Does that make you feel more comfortable? Kind of bringing it
Um,
back to that question I asked earlier.
Well, I was raised in Miami, so there's a lot of diversity there. But I haven't really met another Nicaraguan here in Texas. Doesn't
Okay.
make me feel out of place, but it just like when it comes to, oh, you're Mexican or you're Puerto Rican, because that's the only two Latin places
That
that
people really know.
somebody can be. So it definitely doesn't make me feel uncomfortable, but it kind of more aggravates me.
Okay.
So it's just like, Garrett,
Do you feel like you're aggravated because you're not being represented of your culture because it is different than Mexican or Puerto Rican or
Oh no, definitely.
Ecuadorian?
Like the dialects, the language, it's all different. Like I said, from coming from Miami, I adjusted my dialects with, Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, Argentinians, Colombians. You had all these, so you had to know which word, because one word for me could mean something offensive for the next, country. So it was more of adapting, and people don't adapt.
Awesome. Yeah, and I do like that you mentioned that. I watched the video, one for this class, and a guy was mentioning that he was in his parents were in the Peace Corps, and he went to Mexico and he learned his Spanish there, and he learned that there's some gestures like this is thank you, and then they transferred to Colombia and he did that in traffic to say thank you, and the guy got real mad, cut him off, and there was a whole incident where
Right.
he was upset because this meant something completely different.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's awesome. I feel like that gives you a leg up and kind of, brings to my attention something I need to pay attention for. Doesn't mean the
Right.
same thing to everybody. Last question. What impact statement would you like to make on behalf of the group that you identify the most with, regarding current affairs or events?
I think it would come back to the children, the
Okay.
unaccompanied children. Um, I mean, I guess just really trying to educate ourselves and really show the community or just citizens, if one culture like Afghans or Syrians can get refuge, then why can't we? You know,
Okay.
um, I mean, fair is fair.
I agree with that. Is there one particular thing that somebody can do to help these kids that are currently being held by ICE? Is there a way that you help? How can I advocate for them?
I know like UNICEF, I know
Okay.
they do that. But UNICEF is mostly for third world countries. Um, but they do that. And I've donated to UNICEF.
Okay.
Then there's also uh, something that Jennifer Gardner, the actress, she advocates for, where they send books to children as well.
Okay.
So I mean, something to make them feel more comfortable.
Okay.
And
I love that. Thank you so much, Heiki.
no problem. All right, so I'm gonna ask you the same questions. First one, how does it feel when you are the only one or one of the few of your race in a group?
When I'm the only one, it kind of scares me because I feel like I don't have a support system. So when I see somebody of my race or another person of color, if they're not just all white, so it can be Asian, Filipino, somebody with brown skin, somebody with light skin, but somebody that is an other, it helps me to feel a little bit more comfortable so the focus won't be directly on me. If there's like two of us, or there's like another Black student or African American student or somebody in the workplace, I feel like I can create a bond with them. Um, but I don't use that as a means to go and communicate with them. It just helps me
Okay.
feel more secure, like I'm not alone. But I won't use their race as a like I'm talking to you because you're black too.
Right.
I just feel more comfortable knowing that they're there, that should something happen, I have some kind of support system.
Well, does it mean when you say you feel scared as in intimidated, or because you might be triggered or made fun of, or what is it that
A
scares
little bit
you?
of both. So I am self-conscious, even doing this interview right now. I'm self-conscious. What do I look like? How do I sound? Am I speaking properly? For this project, of course, I'm enunciating and speaking well because it is an assignment. But in social situations, I do speak differently. But who am I around? Do I need to change the way I'm speaking? Did I say this? Are they going to start thinking I'm this because of what I said? What kind of thoughts are they having about me? So it's a little more, I guess, in social situations, it's a little more, what do they think about me?
Okay.
And in those social situations, which I don't have many of now, but when I did, if I go to like a party and there's alcohol involved, I don't trust certain people with drinking, and I feel like alcohol lowers our inhibitions. Well, it does, but I feel like that makes people a little more comfortable to say things. And because of my skin, I am black and I identify as a black woman. My skin is lighter. People think it's okay to say certain things around
Right.
me that are more racist, and although my skin is lighter, you're still talking about somebody that I identify with. And it scares me that you have those thoughts. And
Right.
again, it's not everybody, but some people, it scares me that you have those thoughts. And then when you're sober, you're talking to me and you're happy and you're smiling and laughing. And it's two separate personalities. And it scares me that, okay, what if I do bring my friend that has darker skin around? How are you going to treat them? Are they safe around you? Because what you said didn't sound like they would be safe around you. So
Right. Right.
it's kind of those things that go through my mind.
Okay. Understandable. Okay. What legal or ethical dilemma has happened within the last 2 years with the population you identify the most with, that has made you ashamed or made you advocate or feel compassion for another population of people or individual who was different from you?
For me, it's the George Floyd and the Breonna Taylor cases. Again, those are mostly the famous ones. Everybody's got their names in their mouth, and for me, it wasn't the start of it, but it did make me more aware. Like, and I don't watch the news often, but when I do watch the news or when I'm seeing the news, this is what I'm hearing, and it sounds like it's a pattern. Of
Yeah.
course, it's not just happening to people in the African American race, but it is happening. And then with COVID hitting, we're seeing, Asian people, Korean, Japanese, Chinese, some Pacific Islanders, everybody's getting grouped together as Asian. And we're seeing the hate that's being demonstrated against them as people are ignorant and just assuming. First of all, I work with a lady, she's Korean, the other lady's Chinese, but they're going to be grouped together and mistreated because of it. So
Right.
seeing that firsthand, it's the same thing that's going on within the African American Black community, this hate and violence. So um, it's made me more aware of it, and it's kind of made me a little scared for my future children that can come out with darker skin. And you know even now, that even if they're not darker skin, there's still this hate against the other.
Yeah.
So it's something that kind of scares me. And I would say I have been speaking up more, but I would not say I'm fully informed with everything that I can advocate for it.
No, I understand. I know I had an incident. I don't know if you recall a couple of years ago, there was where a guy went to reach for something in the car. He
Yeah,
was black, and then the police officer shot him.
yeah,
Now, I was driving to Grand Prairie one day with my ex-husband,
okay,
and we got pulled over, I think because he was driving fast. And I carry my weapon. And so I told him, I wasn't driving, but I told him, we have a gun in the car. And then he says, okay, well, I want to see it so I can make sure that it is registered and I have a permit. And then my ex-husband went to reach and it's in front of me in the glove compartment. I'm like, hold on, let him do it because, again, I thought that he was white, but I'm other. So I'm like, and the police officer was white. So I'm like,
Right.
I'm not trying to get shot. So that kind of mentality kicks in, when it comes to police brutality and the excessive use of force, which that's one of the main things that there's a controversial when it comes to police officers, the excessive use of force. So I
Right.
mean,
And in this class, that's actually something that I've come across reading. So we do have what's called implicit bias, implicit meaning unconscious bias. Of course, there's we have good biases and bad biases. And a lot of these are rooted in stereotypes and, again, unconscious. So what one of the articles I read said was, with police officers specifically, these unconscious biases are in their head. And when a person of color does reach for something, they're more likely to think it's a weapon than if it was a white man or a white woman reaching for something. So they're more inclined to think that it is something that will harm them, which is why they react. And there's a little bit more brutality. I can't remember the article. I'll have to try to find it again. It was recently that I looked at this, but it was interesting to read. And they're still doing studies on the brutality from police officers, because it's not just now, it's just we're seeing it more. So they're still trying to do a study and find a way to fully document, like, what are the numbers of what's going on within the different racial groups, so we can see how big of a problem we actually have, because it's not a matter of if it's a problem, it's how big is the problem and how is it affecting the different racial groups. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And I also have the same thing. Again, my skin is lighter, but when I see a police officer or I get pulled over, I'm thinking, oh God, what did I do? Even though it's usually speeding, I do have a lead foot, but my thought is, what did I do? What can I do? So I always take the keys out of the ignition, and before the officer can get there, I have my phone pulled up with my registration and my ID ready to go. So I'm not reaching for anything, which I have the privilege of not having to do that, but for my own fear and what I've seen, and just because I'm thinking the community I identify with, it's there and it's in me to be scared. So I understand what you're talking about.
Yeah. Next question. What stereotypes do you think people have about you because of your race?
Well, for me, it's within the Black community. I think people think I'm more uppity, or because of how I speak. So I was raised within, like, my father's side, which is the Black one, but they have educations. My aunts, they're all educated, bachelor's, masters, all of them very well spoken and, proper English. So growing up, I was corrected a lot. I speak properly. If you can hear now, I'm using my proper voice because this is what they would want to hear. But on my time, I'm a little more lax in how I speak.
Right.
I speak proper. I speak to everybody that same way, and I speak properly when I first know you. When I'm comfortable with you, I can be myself and use the tone I'm more comfortable with.
Right.
That initial meeting is, oh, you speak proper and you're light skinned. These light skins think they're bougie. They always think they're bougie and they think they're better than somebody. In reality, I'm like, I don't speak like this. This is not how I'm comfortable. I don't know you. And in order to prevent offending you and to get to know you, I'm going to speak this certain way. So I put on the more professional tone. So until I get to know you and I'm comfortable. I think that people think I'm bougie because of my skin. There is a color issue within the African American and Black communities, where there is colorism, and it's seen in a lot of different ways of how people are portrayed in movies and everything. So I think the stereotype is I'm proper and uppity.
It's the classism of depending on the skin color or the level of blackness.
Exactly, the tone of my skin. Exactly.
Right.
For white people or other people, again, I put on the same face. I'm going to be proper until I'm comfortable with you. I don't know what stereotypes they would hold against me, except for they want to touch my hair. So that's something that's seen in the Black community. My hair wanting to be touched is by both colors, white and black, and I use that specifically because that's who I interact with the most. But everybody wants to touch my hair because it seems so soft, and oh, I love your curls and let me touch them. So I guess that's the most of a stereotype I can think of for like
Right.
in the white community.
Your last question. What impact statement would you like to make on behalf of the group that you identify the most with regarding current affairs or events?
I'm going to take it back to the shootings and that implicit bias. I think the course I'm taking now, this is diversity and culture. This is a wonderful thing that's brought a lot to my attention. If we can get that within the police departments to kind of bring to mind these implicit biases and make them more aware to people, although we know that we have biases, again, the unconscious ones are able to take over if we don't bring them to mind and become more mindful of them. So if we can take a class like this and give them to the officers, maybe they won't think a person of color is reaching for a weapon automatically.
Right.
Maybe they'll take that second. I did tell them to grab this. I did say this. They're not, the logical thing is they're reaching for this. Let's take a second. Maybe I say freeze. I'm uncomfortable with your movements, but now instead of just shooting automatically, they'll take a second, give them that warning, like I'm uncomfortable with your movement. Stop what you're doing. And maybe that'll make a change. So let's educate. Like I said, this thing is brought to light. I myself have a lot of biases, and I, like mentioned earlier, I'm uncomfortable in situations where there's too many white people. It scares me. And that's something that this class brought to my attention. So bringing that attention to others and kind of working on your biases and working on mindfulness, I think is a great way to kind of help decrease the police brutality.
Right.
Let's educate. So that's what I would like to do. And also, you mentioned earlier about UNICEF. What I'd like to do is educate myself on these different statistics, because I only brought forward 2 names, but there are many others, and I only know a handful of them. I would like to educate myself more so that I can advocate more, whether that be in social situations, calling out microaggressions, calling out these biases that people don't realize they have. I think that would be a way to kind of, put my 2 cents forward and kind of help the cause, even if it's not financial.
A little bit goes a long way.
I believe it. It only takes a couple of cents from everybody and we can change the world. So if that 2 cents is in the form of money, great. If it's in the form of words, awesome.
Right. 1 cent at a time.
Yes. That was the last of the questions?
Yes.
Awesome. Heike, I appreciate you coming on here and let me ask you the questions. Did any of this make you feel uncomfortable? Was this an uncomfortable situation?
No, but I would say is because I know who you are as a person.
Okay.
Maybe if I was being interviewed by somebody who I didn't know, I kind of feel a little passionate or passive aggressive between myself and the interviewee.
Really? So you think it's more uncomfortable with people we don't know?
I think so, because you don't want to say, society now, everything's offensive. So you can't, I'd be worried about if I said something that I offended this person, even though, it's just common thing or, something simple as a comment. But then again, society now has become a little on the soft side.
Gotcha. Understandable. Thank you so much for doing this interview. I do appreciate it.
No problem.
I've been Samari. This was Heike Schweigert, and thank you for watching.